Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to break down one of the most fundamental questions out there. How does a disease actually happen? We've all wondered this, right? You're in an office, someone's coughing, and a few days later, half the room is sick, but the other half is totally fine. Is that just random luck? Or is there something else going on behind the scenes? Well, it turns out it's not random at all. Getting sick isn't just a case of drawing the short straw. It is a predictable process, a series of events that you can actually map out and understand. And there's a name for this, the natural history of disease. It's a bit of a formal term, but all it really means is that every illness has a typical path it follows, from the very beginning to the very end if we don't do anything to stop it. And understanding that path, that's the whole key to prevention. Okay, so let's get into it. To really understand this whole process, scientists use a super simple but really powerful tool. It's called the epidemiologic triangle, and you can just think of it as the recipe for getting sick. See, for any disease to actually kick off, you need these three specific ingredients to come together at just the right time. You need an agent, that's the thing that can cause the sickness. You need a host, that's us, the person who gets sick. And you need an environment, the whole setting where the agent and the host can meet. You need all three. Take just one of them out of the equation and the recipe fails. The disease can't happen. So let's break down this recipe, ingredient by ingredient. First up, the agent. What exactly is an agent? Because it's probably a lot more than what you're thinking. When you hear agent, your brain probably jumps to germs, right? A virus, bacteria, and yeah, those are biological agents. But it can also be a chemical, like a poison or a toxin. It can even be nutritional, and this one's wild, like the lack of a vitamin. Or it can be a physical force, like extreme heat or even a car in an accident. The agent is just the thing that kicks off the whole process. Now, a really important thing to get is that not all agents are created equal. They have different characteristics. You can almost think of them like different superpowers. Infectivity, for example, is how good it is at getting into your body. Viability is how long it can survive on, say, a doorknob, waiting for someone to touch it. And virulence is how much damage it can do once it gets inside. These traits are what make one agent a minor nuisance and another one incredibly dangerous. So you've got an agent, but it can't do a thing on its own. It needs a susceptible host. And what makes one person more susceptible than another? Well, it's a really fascinating mix of different factors. Our risk isn't just about our biology, things like our age or our genetics. It's also hugely influenced by our social and physical traits, things like our lifestyle, our diet, where we've traveled. It's this incredible combination of who we are and how we live. All right, we have our agent and we have our host. The final piece of the puzzle, the third ingredient, is the environment. This is the stage. It's the world where the agent and the host actually come into contact. And you can see how the world around us plays a huge part in this. There are physical factors, like the climate or the quality of our water. There are biological factors, like whether there are mosquitoes around to carry an agent from one person to another. And crucially, there are social factors. Things like our economic systems and our political structures that can make it either easier or harder for a disease to spread. And this quote just sums it all up perfectly. Getting sick isn't like a lightning strike out of a clear blue sky. No, it's a chain reaction. It's the end result of that unique interaction between the agent, the host, and the environment. All 3 points of that triangle have to connect for it to work. So now for the most important part. Because once you understand this recipe for sickness, you also understand how to stop it. And this is where it gets really empowering. To prevent a disease, you just have to break one side of that triangle. I mean, think about it. When you wash your hands, what are you doing? You're removing the agent from the host. When you disinfect a countertop, you're changing the environment to make it hostile to the agent. When you wear a mask, you're putting a barrier between the host and the agent. Every single one of these actions is a deliberate move to break that chain of events. And this is really the ultimate takeaway. Public health, personal prevention, it's not magic. It's the strategic, intentional work of finding a weak link in that chain and breaking it. It means we actually have the power to intervene, to disrupt that recipe for sickness. So, as we finish up, I want to leave you with this thought. Understanding this triangle isn't just an interesting science lesson. It actually gives you agency. It gives you power. So ask yourself this, looking at your day, your actions, your choices, which side of that triangle can you influence today?